Hi everyone. So it seems that you're all fans of learning phrasal verbs. So I've got a new video for you today about 10 really useful and common phrasal verbs when you need to talk about your family. So I know that's a topic that you are likely going to have to talk about at some point in your English learning journey. So if you find this type of lesson interesting and useful for you, please like the video and subscribe to the channel. It really lets me know that this is the kind of content that you want to see. So that would be great. Thank you very much. And without further ado, let's take a look at the 10 phrasal verbs that you can use to talk about family. So the first phrasal verb that we have today is to take after. Now we use this phrasal verb when we want to talk about how you resemble somebody, usually a parent, and we can use take after to describe resemblance physically, and it's really common to use it to talk about resembling somebody in character. Okay, so their daughter looks more like her father, but she really takes after her mother with her sense of adventure. So physically, she looks more like her father, but in terms of her character and her sense of adventure, she takes after her mother. You look so much like your mother. Do you take after her in character as well? So yeah, although you look like her, maybe you don't take after her in character. So it's an interesting question to ask. If you see that somebody looks like a parent, but you'd like to know a little bit more about how they are in their character. Okay, so that is take after. Okay, and the next logical phrasal verb to look at after take after is to look like. Now this means to resemble physically. So you said you had 2 children. Do either of them look like you? He doesn't really look like either of his parents, but people say he looks like his grandfather when he was younger. Okay, so here to look like is to look similar, to resemble physically. Usually to a relative, you usually resemble a relative, but you can say, wow, I can't believe you're not sisters. You look like each other so much. Okay, so it can be used in other contexts as well, but it's a really common one when we're talking about family. Okay, this next one is often confused with the previous two because we've got look after. Okay, and so this actually means to be responsible for or care for somebody. Let's take a look at some examples to give you some context. So the children's grandmother looks after them while their parents work. Yeah, so she's responsible for them. She makes sure they have everything they need and just in general cares for them. Who should we ask to look after the dog while we're on holiday? Yes, so to look after a pet. Pets are, of course, part of the family, so you might need it to describe that kind of thing. And I've actually included a third example because sometimes we can use look after with the reflexive pronoun. So I'm sorry to hear you've been feeling unwell. Look after yourself. Yeah, just to say take care. It's another way to say take care. Okay, so there you go, that's look after. Now this next one is quite common, so I imagine many of you will already know it, but it's worth mentioning, firstly because it is a really useful one, and secondly because people actually make mistakes with grow up using it slightly incorrectly when really they should simply use grow. Now, first of all, let's look at the meaning. So it means to mature or to become an adult. Okay, so we often use it to describe where we spent our childhood. So we might ask somebody, like, where did you grow up? Or she was born in a small Scottish town, but she grew up in Edinburgh. So you can see there that it's where she spent her childhood. So, so for example, people sometimes use grow up for things like plants. Now, plants don't grow up, they grow. Okay. Now, children can grow, and growing is part of the process of growing up, right? So when you see somebody's child who you haven't seen for a while, you say, oh, you've grown so much since I last saw you. Now, that means that they've literally got taller and bigger. Now, if you say to somebody, you've grown up, it means that I see you as more mature, more adult-like. Yeah, so the last time I saw you, you were a little girl, and now you're a young lady. You have grown up. Okay, so that's the difference. To grow is just physically to get bigger, and taller. So you can use that for plants and other things. And to grow up is actually the process of becoming an adult. So that is more specific to people. Okay. So I hope that clarifies with where people go wrong when they use to grow up. The next phrasal verb is to bring up, which is often used in the passive form. So let's have a look at the meaning of this one, and it simply means to raise a child. If you bring up a child, you raise them. So she was brought up by her grandparents in the countryside. So in this case, maybe something happened to her parents and they weren't able to bring her up. You know, this sometimes happens maybe if the parents die. So the grandparents in this case taught her how to behave. They raised her. They taught her the ways of the world, that kind of thing. They brought her up, and she was brought up by them. Okay. They were brought up in a large family with many siblings. And the last example, it's not always easy bringing up children. Now, this next phrasal verb is to look up to somebody. Now, this can be literal. You can physically be shorter than the person and look up to them, but we're not looking at that meaning of look up to. We're going to look at the figurative sense of this phrasal verb, and it means to admire or to respect someone. Okay, let's have a look at some examples. She always thought of her as an older sister and looked up to her. Okay, she admired her, she respected her, she idolized her even. She wanted to be just like her. Another example, I remember wanting to be just like my grandfather as I looked up to him so much. Okay, similar again. You admired or respected that person in a particularly strong way. Okay, this next phrasal verb. So I think we all know that sometimes in families things don't always go perfectly. So let's have a look at what we can use when people have an argument. We can say that they fall out. They have fallen out with each other. Okay, so yeah, to fall out with somebody simply means to have an argument and to not be on speaking terms with that particular person. So I can't believe it. My two aunts have fallen out with each other again. Yeah, maybe you have some people in your family who rarely seem to see eye to eye and have an argument. It doesn't have to be a big shouting argument. It can just be that they're not really talking to each other. So we can say that they have fallen out. And another example here, she wishes her relatives didn't fall out with each other every Christmas. Yeah, so these occasions when they're supposed to be really wonderful and nice and everybody comes together, well, sometimes people can fall out with each other. But hopefully at some point they will make up with each other again. And okay, that's the opposite end. So they fall out with each other, they have an argument, and then hopefully later they make up with each other, they become friends again. So let's have a look at some examples. It was great that after 6 months of not talking, they finally made up with each other. Yes, something brought them together again and the disagreement ended. Has your cousin made up with your uncle yet? Yeah, so this person is inquiring about the status of the disagreement, whether this disagreement is continuing or if they have settled their differences and become friends again. This next one is a nice one and it's really common as well. So be sure to take a note if you don't already know. Get together. So this is to meet together socially. It's typical with families, but you can also use this to talk about friends as well. So you might say, have you got some time after work to get together? Let's go for a drink or let's go for a coffee. Let's get together. But let's look at some examples to do with family in context. We don't have much time during the year, but we make sure we get together every Christmas. When was the last time that you got together with all of your cousins? So maybe it was something like a wedding or a christening or a funeral. Sadly, these are the times of year, or these are the times or the occasions when we tend to get together with our extended families. This last phrasal verb that we can use to talk about families, particularly people who have, if they have kids, is to tell off. And this means to reprimand verbally, or to speak angrily to somebody, usually a child, for doing something wrong. So this is like a verbal message to somebody to tell them that you're not happy with something that they did or their behavior, that kind of thing. So the boys got told off for making too much noise. His mother told him off for misbehaving. Okay, so that is to tell off. So that's it. Those are 10 phrasal verbs that are commonly used when we're talking about our families. I hope you found a few new ones here. Please use the comment section below to practice using those phrasal verbs. And if you haven't done so already, please subscribe to the channel so that you get notified the next time there is a new lesson. So thanks very much for listening. Take care and bye for now.